Well, hello, everybody. This is Heather Lockett, and we're at Lasting Conversations. Today, we are with the fabulous Ned Raynolds of Senior Cycling. Senior Cycling is based in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and has locations and does trips all over the place. And Ned and I very serendipitously met when I was on part of my road trip at Niagara Falls. And I stepped outside one morning with my coffee, and there was this van and these amazing people getting ready to go on a bike trip. And I saw this seniorcycling.com and just said hello. And I knew instantaneously that this is going to be a fantastic topic for the Lasting Conversations show. So hello, Ned.
Hello, Heather.
Hey there. So tell us about Senior Cycling and what was the genesis of its beginning, and who is it that comes riding bikes with you?
Okay, well, Senior Cycling is actually something like 20-year-old company that was started by, I am told, a single woman who was about 60 when she started the company. And I think she had a friend and partner who they began, running fully supported bike tours for seniors who, we define as folks 50 and over. Mm-hmm. She bought one van and one trailer and outfitted that trailer, to carry bicycles and all the associated equipment that you need to do a fully supported bike tour. So that's, racks in the trailer for holding the participants' luggage and, spare bike parts and coolers for snacks and drinks and, bike tools, of course, for any on-the-trail repairs, stuff like that. So her name was Pat, and she ran the company for something like 12 or 13 years. So that means she was into her 70s by the time she then sold the company to a couple who ran it for 7 years. That couple lived in Asheville, North Carolina. And during the time that they had the company, they expanded the capacity of the company to, they bought another van and another trailer and began offering, more tours. So these bike tours are offered, as you said, in, various places, theoretically anywhere in the country. Mm-hmm. Historically, they've mostly been the eastern half and Midwest. I think the farthest west that Senior Cycling has ever run a tour has been Colorado or Montana. But anyway, these tours are run anywhere there is a really great series of rail trails. And that's key because, as people know, rail trails are old railroad corridors that have been reclaimed and converted into off-road bike trails. And the network of rail trails in the United States is huge and growing because Rails to Trails has become a kind of a movement. There's a national nonprofit, the Rails to Trails Conservancy. If you Google rail trails, you'll get that. And state departments of transportation are engaged in making these conversions, along with local communities. Anywhere this has happened, the rail trail becomes an instant place for community, for economic development. You see things like bike shops and ice cream shops and boutiques springing up along the routes. The rail lines often went through town centers. And so, that's what happens with these rail trails. Anyway.
So I was just going to pop in to say, the railroad trails are really cool for
Yes.
every way that you were just sharing. And to actually, what the trains would do is cut through countrysides. And so there's a lot of nature. And
That too.
for the walking and the exercising and the biking, it takes you off these busy roads. So there's a bit of a safety factor.
Oh, absolutely.
And then that connection through small towns that perhaps have been lost with the 95s and the I-80s, all those interstates.
Mm-hmm.
So continue. This is really spectacular.
Yeah. And just again, on the features of rail trails, the railroads always chose the routes with the least possible elevation change.
Ah.
Right.
Oh,
so
right. Okay.
And of course they even cut, tunnels and built trestles when they needed to.
Yeah.
So many of these rail trails, they often follow river valleys, but they follow the low point as much as they can. They have tunnels and trestles that can be really spectacular and fun to ride. And as you mentioned, they go through, both beautiful countryside, beautiful vistas, and little communities, little town centers. So they're wonderful. So that's where senior cycling's bike routes, bike tours are focused. Any place you can put together, 4 to 5 to 6 days of riding as much as possible on these rail trails. So anyway, I mentioned the couple that bought the company from Pat, had it about 7 years last year through a mutual friend up here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And he and his wife were ready to move on and let go of the company. And I had been asked to consider running for the state legislature here in New Hampshire. And when I was first asked, I said, well, I'm kind of interested in doing that because I've been in politics, throughout my life. I'd served on the city council here in Portsmouth. That's why, the invitation came. But serving in the legislature in New Hampshire is pretty much a volunteer job. It doesn't pay anything, and it takes about half your time during the first half of the year, January to June. And so if you have a sort of a regular full-time job, there's no way you can do something like that. But it occurred to me that maybe I could run this bike touring company with my half time during the first half of the year. Mm-hmm. And while I was serving the legislature, the other half. And then during the second half of the year, get the chance to get out and participate and lead tours myself. So that's why you and I ran into each other in the driveway of the DoubleTree by Hilton in Niagara Falls, because that was my second tour of the year that I'd been on. Anyway, it's worked out very well so far. I'm really enjoying, running the company. I've always had a passion for cycling, throughout my life. I wouldn't say I've been despite the passion, that doesn't mean I've done, a cross-country bike trip or a bunch of century bike rides, which are when you ride 100 miles.
That's right. When you're doing 100.
I've never done any of those things. But I've been a bike commuter in a lot of the places where I lived. I've been I'm just an advocate for cycling as an activity for people to stay healthy and vigorous and connect with other people. When you're riding your bike through your town, you see things and you see people and you ring your bell and say hi. Where when you're driving your car through your town, you don't do those things. So as a city councilor, I was always an advocate for making Portsmouth, my community, more bicycle friendly. And it's become that in the 20 years I've lived here. I had a chance to do a few multi-day bike tours with my Coast Guard Academy classmates in the last few years. And I suppose that, again, serendipity, I had had done one and was in the planning stages with another when I met the previous owner of Senior Cycling, and we started talking. And I was like, "Yeah, multi-day bike tours. Wow, this is kind of neat." And it's just happened. I decided to buy the company, and I took it over January of this year, and it's been sorry for the pun, but it's been a great ride so far.
Well, I love puns. This is, and I love that the conversation is just rolling right along. Now, when we were chatting just before the show, the mention of kind of blending business and the pleasure and how it all, what are the experiences that you've been having? And so technically as a business, and this is a new business venture for you, just really the last 6 months or so, what has evolved for you personally with this blending the two? And of course, you're in politics, and then you're out in nature. This is it's very interesting to me how all of these things kind of blend together.
Sure. Well, I would say that one of the really best, not really surprises, but one of the best aspects of taking over this company and running it, for the last, what are we now, 7 months, has been the connection to the people who, are my customers or my guests on the tours. And that's, when I met the previous owner, and of course I went on a couple of tours last year with him. The first tour that I went on was back in June 2022 on one of our most popular and one of the most popular rail trails in the country. It's called the Great Allegheny Passage. And it's a 150-mile rail trail that goes from Pittsburgh down to Cumberland, Maryland, which is in the western mountains of Maryland. I went on that trip, and then I also co-led. I went as the second leader in September on a bike tour in Cape Cod, and of course, the groups that we have. That's another aspect I wanted to mention of senior cycling. The largest group of people we'll have is 13 people, so relatively small groups, and that's dictated by the capacity of the van. Basically, it's a 15-passenger van, and you have 2 tour leaders. So on a tour where you're transporting all the people and the bikes at some point or points in the tour, that's your limiting factor. So our largest group is 13. So that's, a pretty small group of people. And
it's a nice cozy size. It's a great size that everybody can be a group, and yet it's not overbearing and cumbersome.
Right.
With so many.
Right. It's not
literally moving parts. We're just going to keep rolling with the puns with so many moving parts.
Yeah. No, that's immediately, I was struck by that. And I pretty quickly found myself in conversation, using the term, senior cycling family, because very quickly on these bike tours, people get to know each other. And I think it's also due to maybe the self-selection of the type of people. Excuse me for a minute. I'm going to grab some water.
Okay.
The type of people who would sign up and come on a multi-day bike tour, I think it's a certain kind of person. And those certain kind of people are really just open to meeting other people and bonding with them. And that's what happens on these tours. There's kind of almost magic, but it's really just good people who enjoy cycling and who enjoy meeting other people and experiencing new things. And you put them all together, and by the end of the week, they are like best friends. And I know for a fact that we already have had, in senior cycling, people who have met each other for the first time on one tour, who then will stay in touch with each other. They become friends, they stay in touch, and they then plan to go on another tour, the following year together with this other couple that they met. It's really neat. And I saw that in the people that I met, on the Gap last year, Cape Cod in September. And in this year, the tour Niagara Falls, Erie Canal, that group, by the second day, you would have thought that they had known each other for much longer.
Well, that was the feeling that I got when I just stepped outside and I could hear the click, click of the certain shoes. But everyone was so friendly and smiling and, oh, my name is Heather. Oh, it's so great to meet you. And you have members of your team. I want to talk about that as well. That there's just this ooze of ease and friendliness. And we were all each starting our own days, but your group, you mentioned that word magic. It felt magical. It really did.
Well, thanks. Yeah. It really, there it is. You experienced it. And of course, that's super important. An aspect of, running the company and having bike tours is, the leaders, the two leaders that Senior Cycling provides. It takes a certain special kind of person to be a bike tour leader. And, passion for cycling is just the first, but being a real people person is number two. Knowing how to be a great host, a great listener, being very empathetic, being able to intuit, detect and manage group dynamics, all of those things. And I am very fortunate and proud to say that, Senior Cycling has a great group of leaders who have become part of the company over the years. And the two that you met in Niagara Falls, Nick Harding and Michael Robinson, are two of the newer leaders. But they were naturals. And it was a really great tour. And, I've got other leaders like them, and I've got some new folks that I'm bringing in. But that role is very important, playing host and guide and, logistician with all
and mechanic when things
bike mechanic. Yeah, absolutely. All of those things. So I'm really blessed to have a great group of folks doing that. And they're the ones that are really frontline and making, creating the experience that Senior Cycling's guests are expecting and are paying for.
Yeah, that's great. And they're not all from the Portsmouth area. Do you have people all over the country? So tell us some of the other locations that are that your team members are from and where it is that you guys go. And do you have other trips that you're planning even to take internationally, or that's a whole different wheelhouse? But just even within the United States with these rail trails, there are so many amazing excursions and places to explore.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, first, I'll just mention, since you asked, where my other leaders might be, I've got a great couple, a man and a woman who live up in Missoula, Montana. They've been leaders for years for the previous owner and now for me. And we were just on a Zoom call yesterday talking about the 2024 schedule and, which tours they were going to lead versus other people. I mentioned Michael and Nick, they live in Rochester, New York. And so that's why they embraced planning and leading the tour, the Erie Canal, Niagara Falls tour. That's a new one for Senior Cycling. That was the first iteration, the one that you stumbled upon. I mentioned the Great Allegheny Passage. Both Jack and Mare from up in Montana, and Nick and Michael have led. Well, Jack and Mare have led many of those tours on the Gap. I've got a great guy new to the team this year, Tony Palmer, who lives down in, he lives in Florida now, but he lived in Atlanta for about 15 years before that. And so he was a great leader this year, along with Jack, when I initiated the tour we call the Civil Rights Tour, Atlanta to Birmingham. Tony knew the city very well. So we spent our first day in Atlanta, and then we ride west toward Birmingham. And we're bringing that tour back this year. Let's see, who else? I don't want to forget people now. I've got a great new partner in my for senior cycling in one of my best friends from our Coast Guard Academy days. My friend Mike Hicks, who lives down in Connecticut on the shore. He was my partner for our new Rhode Island Ocean State Beaches and Breezes tour, which was just a few weeks ago. And then he's going to co-lead with me on Cape Cod this year. So I've got a guy named Alan Brown who lives out in Colorado, who's a real veteran cycler and tour leader. I should mention, we have gotten most, if not all of the tour leaders for senior cycling have experience with another organization. It's a nonprofit called Adventure Cycling that folks may have heard of. It's a nonprofit, but they have a few different arms. Generally they just sort of promote cycling, cycle touring, by being supportive with information and things like that. But they have an arm of their organization that leads tours. It kind of looks and feels more like a volunteer operation, where people sort of say, I want to lead a tour, and then they plan it, and Adventure Cycling kind of supports them in doing that. So anyway, the tours tend to be larger in number, and they also can be, most often I think they are ones where people bike with their self-supported. They bring tents and sleeping bags, and they bike, and they find a campground, and they pitch their tent, and they cook their food. So that's if you can do that, you can lead tours for senior cycling, where we do not pitch tents or cook our own food. We find cozy B&Bs or nice hotels, and we go out to dinner, go to restaurants for our meals.
Hot showers, a cozy bed.
Hot showers,
Yeah.
cozy bed. Yeah.
Good.
By the time you're 50 and over, you're mostly past the lying on the ground, the 2-inch foam mattress days. Anyway.
How great that there's a different choice. So people that want to be more rugged can do that. And then this is, I will say, a gentler option, or it's a lovely option. And again, you get to bump into people like me or other people along the way that, as you have a restful night to then move on to your next location, that's really, really fun. So what I was thinking of as you were describing your staff is, I'm going to make an assumption with this question is, are these second and third careers for your team? If everybody is of a certain age, these are not necessarily the 20-somethings that are just starting out in life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, the leaders are also, over 50.
But tell us, cyclers. This is what's intriguing too, are the actual ages. So of the people, do you have people in their 70s? Are people pushing 80? Are people mostly in their 60s? And same with your staff as well.
You mean, sure.
The ages,
So the leaders, all of our leaders are in their 60s and 70s. I'm 59. Mike is 59. We're probably the youngest leaders that we have. And the age of people who come on the tours is definitely, even though we say 50 plus, from my observation, most of the people are over 60.
Mm-hmm.
And we certainly have people into their 80s. I mean, we had a couple on the tour where we met you,
Mm-hmm.
where the two of them, man and woman, were 84 years old.
Get out. That's
yeah,
extraordinary.
yeah. And not only that, the man had called me in March and said, I had a fall and I broke my leg. I broke my femur. Now, I don't know how serious, whole break, or if it was a crack or something like that, but he had a titanium rod put in his leg, and he was there with us in July and rode the entire tour. And
Wow.
one day we rode 48 miles. It's absolutely inspirational to see.
That's completely. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the aspects of running this company and getting to meet these people that has been the most gratifying, I guess. And just that I have, appreciate. It isn't just, it's about people, making connections with people and meeting people who are interesting and even, downright inspiring. That's one way, but other people have, stories of adversity and loss. And again, the intimate experience, the maximum size 13 that I talked about earlier, we have dinner together. We sit around in the evening and share wine and drinks and conversation, and people share who they are and where they've come from and the experiences they've had, and you realize that cycling in general, and even coming on these tours, these bike tours, senior cycling, what senior cycling offers people is, this experience and this, for some people, goal. This man's wife told me aside that going on the tour in July was an important goal for her husband to recover from that injury. He's 84. He broke his leg. Now he has a titanium rod, and but he had the goal of, I'm going to get better. I'm going to go on that tour in July because I want to be with my wife and I want to see Niagara Falls and the Erie Canal. And there he was. And boy, he had a difficult time putting his leg over the bicycle. He had to lay the bike almost down flat on the ground to put his leg on the other side of it. But he did it about 50 times during the week, getting on and off the bike. And so, I guess there's that. People say the adage about dealing with adversity, if you get thrown off the horse, get back on again. In this case, it was getting back on the bike again. That was the inspiration for this guy. And I know that that's the case for other people.
This is where, many times we get to the goosebumps part of the show. This is where the word humbling comes to mind, that this can become bigger than our original intention, whether it's, I'm going to have a new business, or for me, it's, I have this show, but I sense that it's bigger than me. That's not even really why I'm doing it. What you were describing is, it's part of the myth buster and paradigm buster that I think having to do with age and what we are or are not capable of doing, whether it's medically, psychologically, spiritually, physically. But we still, within the age realm, there are still inner prejudices. I'll say an outer societal prejudice, but it comes from within first of the, 84 or 70, where we have put a piece of math to our birth dates. And then we create these odd boxes. Now, I keep saying to people, so I got to turn 60 this year. There's another 50, 60 years left. And some people think, well, what are you talking about? That's crazy. Well, no, it's not so much, because people who are easily turning 100 plus now were born close to the first turn of the century, right? And that are doing things like this. So at 84, you could have another 20 some years to be living and being exciting. This is, you and I are in the mid part of our lives, which feels like we've already run through so much. But here are people that just have a whole different way of thinking and being, to say, yes, I can. And I'm going to get on that bike. And there's so much of the world to see. I'm not done yet. I think that's where we're not done yet.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's just it, whether for careers or relationships, we're not done yet. And even for the doctor, the medical society, and to say, well, he's 82, let's let him check out. No, let's go ahead and, patch up and send him on his way to hop on another bike or another horse and enjoy his wife and enjoy his life. So this is
meet some new people
and meet some new people,
experiences.
That's right.
And keep going. Yeah. That's one of the reasons that I jumped at the opportunity to buy this company, was because, of course, from a pure business standpoint, I looked at it and said, the generation of which I am a part, and I think even the one ahead of me and the ones behind me, what you're referring to, the idea of what retirement looks like has changed and is still changing dramatically.
Right.
It's not just this sort of, we don't get past 65 and then say, okay, going to go sit in the rocking chair and accept gradual decline and check out of the world at 80. Instead, it's people are retiring and then seizing that as an opportunity to live another life, another lifestyle. And that's more and more an active lifestyle. People, when they go on vacation these days or in their retirement, they don't want to be just sitting in a rocking chair or a recliner or a lounge, a chaise lounge by a pool. They can do those things, but after riding 30 or 40 miles on the bike that day, so people go on vacation and they want to be active and be vigorous and come back from that vacation feeling healthier maybe than when they left. So that's what senior cycling offers, is, the chance to go to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And instead of just sitting by the pool, get on the bike every day in the morning and go ride 25, 30 miles, see some things, do some things, then come back to the hotel and feeling very satisfied with yourself, or even proud of yourself. Get a drink and sit by the pool. Terrific. And, same thing. I invented a new tour for Washington, D.C., because I've lived there myself 2 different times, total of 7 years. I know what a great city that is for, for visiting, and obviously great things to see, but also for biking. There's some great bike trails, and, people who haven't been to DC in a long time or never been to DC can come on the Washington, DC tour and go biking, but they'll get a chance to go to Mount Vernon and visit, George and Martha Washington's home. They'll get a chance to ride around the mall and the trails, and then go in and see a few museums, ride up Rock Creek Park, see this beautiful trail, this beautiful urban forest, stop at the National Zoo if you want to. So Just being vigorous and healthy, enjoying the whole experience. You kind of grow as a person as you're doing it.
That's so beautiful. And it's, as you were just speaking, it's a really perfect segue to the blend, again, with the blend, what you're doing with politics, legislature, it's business. But how is it that, as you were just talking about, things are evolving and that our older population, we as all of our society, but within the decision makers, right? Mm-hmm. The lawmakers and all of that, and the zoning boards and everything about it. How are you finding, either for you personally, as you have been now thrust in both of these positions pretty much at the same time, to be able to be that good voice for everything that you were just saying? Our older community is not meant to stop working, or most importantly, how are we all going to afford this? Another chunk of years. And it'll get into housing. It'll get into support. It'll get into the roadways, and how is aging going to be now legislated or stewarded? That's really the word. How are we all best stewards for a new generation?
Yeah. Well, that's a good way of putting it. I mean, as a new legislator, representative of my community in the New Hampshire legislature, I take all of my experiences in life and in my community to that role. But the experiences of meeting the folks I've talked about, meeting our guests on tours who are from all over the country, who have all interesting backgrounds and experiences, that just becomes part of what I'm bringing to the role as a legislator. My particular interest is in the legislature is my past career, which was in energy efficiency and renewable energy and climate change, climate action. But of course, in the legislature, we deal with every issue. I'm on the Science, Technology, and Energy Committee, so focusing on the issues that I mentioned, but we all ultimately, are on the floor and voting on the whole wide range of bills. So issues of housing and, aging and healthcare and all those things are certainly part of what I confront and deal with as a legislator. And it's all it's a very interesting role.
That's really awesome. And is there any nugget or from your own pearl of wisdom at this juncture that you would like to share with us, putting all these things together?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I just always want to remind people, I know I'm odd in that I, from a young age, was always interested in government and politics and interested in being involved. And, I majored in government. I went to grad school in public policy. I, served as a city councilor. So I'm a weird odd duck, but
that's not, I don't think that's weird at all, because that gets into a passion, and everybody has something. If it's history, but as a leader, and you've mentioned that you've been in the service, and so I love that. That's not weird at all. We all have something.
By that I mean,
maybe it's outside of the box.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. Well, many people, it's easy, and it's very easy, especially these days, to be pretty cynical about politics and about government. Right. When you bring up politics or mention or anything comes up, a lot of people have the reaction, let's not talk politics. Or
yeah.
I hate politics. I can't
politicians,
stand,
dentists, used car salesmen. Yeah, that's a rough gig.
Pretty low.
Gig. Yeah.
And people are cynical about government, but you know, I like to cite Ben Franklin's quote, which is, "Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others." You know, so I would like the nugget, what I'd like to share with people is, you know, we have a system of self-government. That's what democracy is, self-government. And politics is nothing but human nature writ large. So everybody involved is a human being, and everyone has all the strengths and flaws of human beings, which means we can be at the same time, you know, noble and selfish, honest, dishonest, you know, all the good and the bad. And cynicism doesn't help with anything. Self-government. So you have to participate, you have to contribute, you have to be respectful, be willing to listen, be willing to learn, and, you know, do your best. And if we can all do that from the role of, like you mentioned, school boards, zoning boards, on up to Congress, you know, self-government, it's just us. We decide, we make the rules, you know, we change the rules. The rules change through the court system. We can change them again. It's just us. So cynicism is useless. You know, contributing and being positive is I think the only choice you have. Well, it isn't the only choice you have, but it's the one that's productive. So if you choose that, then you can be productive. And that's what I try to do.
I love everything that you just said, because it really is just us. And we can get feeling, you know, if cynicism is the kissing cousin of hopelessness, right? Mm-hmm. And the cynicism adds that anger flavor. And, you know, and anger is really just fear. But we don't have to be in fear. There are scary things. Like you said, it's both are things that are happening. But when it comes down to just us, between me and my decisions of myself and my own household, which then ripples to our communities and our neighbors mm-hmm. and our country and then in our world. So it's team humanity. We're all in this mm-hmm. together. So I love that we're all in this together. And I'm hearing a flavor of hope, and that there's always a better way. But this is up to us to make those choices.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope over cynicism, hope over fear.
Right.
That's the way to a positive and productive life. So bringing it back to, you know, senior cycling is a vehicle for staying active, staying vigorous and healthy, traveling and seeing new places and meeting new people and having new experiences. And like I say, the significance of that is one of the things that I really maybe didn't quite appreciate when I started with the company, you know, started running it, but have really come to appreciate and feel very, very fortunate to have, and I guess also kind of feel a responsibility now to keep delivering, keep offering for people. You know, there's quite I mentioned the term, you know, senior cycling family. There's quite a constituency of people that have been on senior cycling tours over the years. In fact, one of the people on the tour in Niagara Falls, that was her 10th senior cycling tour.
Wow.
And I definitely detected that over, looking at the registrations and the list from the past. Like, there are definitely people who multiple tours a year, tours year after year going back. So of course, very grateful for that as the business owner, but then wanting to, expand that, bring new people in. So that's one of the things I track when I get registrations. I'm always looking, repeat senior cycler or, new person. Yay, looking on this tour, we have, 4 repeat customers, but we have seven new people. That's awesome. So
that's so exciting.
Ned,
I just appreciate this very rich conversation. And like the spokes on a wheel, there's the central core of the humanity and the joy of it. And then it just ripples and branches out in your locations and everything else. So I really appreciate your time. Tell us where we can find you. And is there one last thing, or are we feeling pretty complete?
Well, I guess I just will certainly give the website, which is seniorcycling.com. Seniorcycling.com. You can find us, and you can find the 2024 schedule. Is already posted, just sort of in a save the date way. Pricing and registration will be available soon. That's what I'm working on this next few weeks. And, Ned, my phone number is 603-365-1725. You can call me. I'm the sole proprietor of it right now. I certainly have all my tour leaders around the, as we talked about, around the country, but I'm the one that's doing all the management right now. And looking forward to continuing, to expand it in future years. We're hoping to get to the West Coast with some tours in 2025. So, and you mentioned international tours. We, through a partner, we actually have a tour that's going to Cuba in November.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's really exciting.
Yeah. And again, in February, twice. We're getting a lot of interest in that. So we're definitely looking to expand the range of experiences that we offer.
Nice. Well, Ned Raynolds, thank you so much for joining us today. And you are a good steward, a good shepherd. This is just wonderful. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Heather. Thank you. Please be sure to like, follow, review, and share this podcast. And if you would like to be part of the conversation, send emails to podcast@Lasting Conversations and find us on Facebook at Lasting Conversations. This is Lasting Conversations. We get to the heart of everything.